Okay, we're going to start with going over the worksheet provided for you for the body organization chapters. These are the 3 pages included in the worksheet. These images will be the ones utilized on your first exam. Before you continue with this video, I strongly encourage you to fill out and identify as many of the things on each of the worksheets yourself first, and then go through what you've written with what we continue with in this video. This page, however, I'm not going to go through each of these because these are written in your textbook and your notes. So I want to point out to you on your exam, you will either be given a picture of a person that will have various regions pointed out that you will have to name from this list, or you will be given descriptive regions saying back of thigh or front of head or anterior forearm. I will describe regions and you'll have to utilize these words as an answer. So I just wanted to bring this word list to your attention so that you become familiar with them. This is a page showing you the various cavities. So you should be able to know which cavities are where, name them, know the larger cavities as well as the subcavities. So for instance, the dorsal cavity is filled with the brain as well as the spinal cord. Those are separate. However, this image only shows the vertebral cavity, where this image here shows the cranial cavity, but together they make the dorsal cavity. So that's what I want to point out here when I ask you about the dorsal cavities and the ventral, because they themselves as a whole are not identified. So I want to make sure that you realize, for instance, these two make up the subgroup of that. So in addition to being able to name each of the cavities here, also know which larger group they belong to. Then I want you to be clear on what the terms parietal and visceral refer to. Whether we're talking about the pericardium, meaning around the heart, or the pleura, meaning around the lungs, each one of those has 2 layers. So the layer around the heart, that's the one on the surface closest to the heart, touching it, is going to be your visceral pericardium. And then the layer that is more outside of that is going to be your parietal pericardium. And that pattern holds true for the lungs. We have down here the parietal pleura, while on this other side, right along the surface of the lung, I'm not tracing very well here, that would be our visceral pleura. We also had some around the peritoneum. They're just not showed in this image and they're really harder to distinguish. So on your exam, I will only use the lungs or the heart as an example, and you'll definitely need to use the word pericardium or pleura, and then you'll need to identify whether it's touching the surface and it's visceral, or if it's around the outer layer outside of that. The other thing you should know is the various planes. Sagittal is when you cut somebody straight down the middle. Actually, that's mid-sagittal. It could be a number of cuts anyway. These are sagittal planes. So if you were to cut a guillotine and then a person's body were to go into right and left sides, that's the sagittal slice. A transverse, I see I have an extra space here in the word, is if you were to cut a person straight across that way, just as if it would be this way here. And then coronal or frontal, that's if you had a guillotine face this way and it's going down and it would slice a person along that plane. So you would have a front and back side that would fall apart, and that's the frontal plane. And then oblique, we don't use this very much, it just happens to be on here, is obviously going to be something at an angle. If you have any questions, please let me know.